Let's watch this video Jacob sent us.
Marx had 6 children, never worked a day in his life. 3 of his kids died of starvation in infancy. 2 others committed suicide. Not a successful model father. When he died, 6 people attended his funeral. Karl Marx developed, though, in 1848, the Communist Manifesto, how to destroy a country.
He spent his whole life working. The dude worked himself to death. Instead of taking care of his own health, he just like locked himself in libraries and read. I mean, he was extremely active, organizing the workers politically and doing on the ground work when he was young. And then when he was old, he just like locked himself in the library and read every book in existence so he could write Capital.
How to have it be taken over by communism. First thing, you abolish private property. Now, everything Marx did
heavy progressive income tax. The Chinese have lower taxes than Americans, which some people might find surprising. But I don't know if there's anything in Marx's work about higher taxes, especially not income taxes, right? The idea is that you change how property works and how ownership works, not you just tax the owning class a little bit more. Abolish rights of inheritance, confiscation of property rights, not personal property rights. So this abolish private property and confiscation. How do you confiscate property rights? It doesn't make sense. You can't capture a right, but these should be the same thing. There's no abolition of personal property. Nobody's coming for your toothbrush. But we do want to ultimately abolish private property in favor of public property, but that's something that happens over a long transition. But central bank. What? It just says central bank. What? There's no explanation. Central bank is communism. Communism is when bank. Is someone going to tell these guys that every capitalist country nowadays has a central bank? I don't even know what to do with that one. Government ownership of communication and transportation. Yes, and I wish this was a thing. Think about how nice it would be if your Wi-Fi company was nationalized. Nobody likes Mediacom in the whole world. Nobody likes it. The means of communication need to be nationalized so they can be made much cheaper and so they can be made much more efficient. The profit-based Wi-Fi companies and telephone companies are garbage. And we need huge investments in public transportation. Who doesn't want that? Who doesn't want more trains and even more buses? Government ownership of factories and agriculture. Collective ownership of factories and agriculture. Worker ownership of factories and agriculture. Government control of labor, workers' control over the value that their labor produces. There does need to be some kind of a central plan created by the society, but it's not just a top-down plan enforced by the government. Corporate farms, regional planning, what the hell? No, collective farms, not corporate farms. Someone definitely just did a typo here. They meant to say collective farms, and they wrote corporate farms. That's capitalism. Free education. Yeah, what a terrible thing that would be.
Intentionally was anti-Christian. If the Bible's for it, he's against it.
Oh, that's interesting. Combination of education with industrial production. He did want labor and different kinds of labor to be incorporated into education so that kids could learn how to work, learn how to contribute to the society, and then decide what they like to do and decide what they're good at. So it's not like child labor. It's like letting kids experiment with different kinds of labor so that labor can be seen as a more fulfilling thing and something that you do for the benefit of the community, not that you're forced to do a few hours a day or 8 hours a day so that you can survive for the enrichment of your boss.
See, the Bible makes private property a real serious issue. Ownership of private property is critical. You can't have freedom without property rights. What good's it do to say you got all kinds of freedom if there's no place to exercise your freedom? Leviticus 25 says the 50th year was hallowed, and it's the year of Jubilee. You could not possibly lose your property permanently in the biblical system. It says every man has...
So they're conflating personal property with private property. The government's coming for your toothbrush. The Bible wasn't even written when they had capitalist property relations. They had feudal relations or slave relations. So you could make this same argument to defend slavery. The Bible says your property is your property, and whatever the government says is your property is your property. You know, under capitalism, the government says that it protects the private property of capitalists, which equals the factories and the farms and the means of productive power, the things that produce the means of subsistence. And because that's hoarded by this small class at the top, whose hoard is protected by the state, the government, and the armed bodies of the state, the mass of society has to sell their labor to this small group of people in order to survive, in order to make it. So it's a totally different system of property and relations of production than what existed during the Bible. So the relations of property have changed over time since then, but still, they're just conflating personal and private property.
His own vine and his own fig tree. Drink waters out of your own cistern, waters out of your own well. Private property is essential.
Private property is not essential. There have been societies who lived with a communist system of property and a collective system of property.